Thomas sat at one end of my kitchen table. Eleanor sat at the other, and I stood between them with 50 years pressing against my chest, something that had needed to get out long before this moment. I had rehearsed it 1,000 times. Every version I found the right words, but when I finally opened my mouth, what came out first was not what I had planned, and what happened after that I could not have prepared for in another 50 years. It was a Sunday evening in late November. 3 days had passed since Eleanor appeared at my front door. 3 days since I had stood in my hallway looking at my own eyes in a face I had never seen before, while Thomas's voice came from the kitchen asking who was there. 3 days in which I had told Eleanor I needed a little time, in which she had nodded with a patience that undid me, handed me a card with her phone number, and walked back to her car in the cold without asking for anything more. 3 days in which I had sat alone in this house trying to find the words for something that had never had words before. I called Thomas on Saturday morning. I asked him to come for dinner on Sunday. I told him there was something I needed to tell him. He was quiet for a moment on the other end of the line. Then he said he would be there. I called Eleanor next. She answered on the first ring as though she had been waiting. I asked if she would come too. She said yes. Just that one word, yes. And then she said, "Take whatever time you need, Margaret. I have been waiting 50 years. A few more days will not change anything." I stood in my kitchen after I hung up, and I held the phone against my chest for a long time. Sunday came the way difficult days always come, slowly at first, and then all at once. I made a pot roast because it was Thomas's favorite since he was a boy, and I needed something in my hands that morning, something ordinary to hold on to while the rest of the day built itself around me. I set the table for 3. I put the letter in the center, still sealed, still in its cream-colored envelope with my handwriting on the front. I looked at it sitting there between the plates and the water glasses, and I thought, this is what 50 years looks like when you finally put it down somewhere. Smaller than I expected, quieter. Thomas arrived first at 5:30. He came through the door and stopped when he saw the table. He saw the 3rd plate. He saw the envelope. I watched something move across his face, a question forming that he did not yet have the words for. I told him to sit down. I told him someone else was coming. I told him I would explain everything when she arrived. He sat. He did not take off his jacket. Eleanor knocked at 6 o'clock exactly. I opened the door, and she was standing on my porch in a gray coat with her hands folded in front of her, and she looked at me with those gray-blue eyes and gave me a small nod, the way you nod at someone when you are both about to do something hard and you want them to know you are not going to run. I stepped back. She came inside. I walked her to the kitchen doorway. Thomas stood up from the table. He looked at Eleanor. He looked at me. He looked back at Eleanor, and I saw the moment it happened, the moment something in him recognized something in her without knowing yet what it was recognizing or why. His face did not change exactly. It stilled, the way water stills before something moves beneath it. I said, "Thomas, please sit down. There is something I should have told you a long time ago." He sat. Eleanor sat across from him. I stayed standing because I could not sit, not yet, not with everything pressing against the inside of my chest the way it was pressing. I put my hands on the back of my chair, and I looked at my son, and I began.
I told him about the fall of 1973, about Daniel Graves, about the county fair in August, and the empty roads outside of town, and the way Daniel laughed at everything, even the things that were not funny, even the things that were a little sad, and how that laugh had made me, at 17, like the world was larger and more generous than I had understood it to be. I told him about October and the bathtub and the quiet that fell over everything. I told him about the phone call in November and the drive to Burlington in my mother's car and signing my name on a grey February morning while my hands shook so badly I could barely hold the pen. I told him all of it. Thomas did not move while I spoke. He sat with his hands flat on the table and his eyes on me, and he did not move at all. The way you go very still when something is happening that you need every part of yourself to receive. I watched his face while I spoke, and I saw it change, not suddenly, gradually, the way light changes in a room when a cloud moves over the sun, something going out of it, something else, something I did not yet have a name for, coming in. When he finished, the kitchen was completely silent. Eleanor sat with her hands folded on the table. She had not said a single word the entire time. She had simply sat there and let me speak and let Thomas hear it and let the truth take up the space it needed to take up after 50 years of being compressed into something the size of a sealed envelope. Thomas looked down at the table, then he looked at Eleanor, then he looked at me. He said, "How long have you known?" I said, "Since October, since I found the letter." He said, "And before that?" I said, "Since February 1974. He said nothing for a moment. Then he pushed back his chair. The legs scraped against the kitchen floor, a sound that seemed very loud in the silence. He stood up. He picked up his jacket from the back of the chair. He walked to the kitchen door. He stopped with his hand on the frame, and he stood there for a moment with his back to us, and I could see his shoulders, the set of them, the way they were carrying something new and very heavy that had not been there an hour ago. He did not turn around. He just said quietly, "I need some air." And then he walked out. I listened to the front door open and close. I listened to his boots on the porch steps. I listened to the sound of his truck door, and then the engine, and then the sound of him pulling out of the driveway and driving away down Elm Street until there was nothing left to listen to at all. The kitchen was very quiet. Eleanor had not moved. She was still sitting with her hands folded on the table, and her face held something I had not expected to find there. Not anger, not hurt, something that looked, if I had to name it, like understanding. The particular understanding of someone who has spent a long time making peace with a wound they did not choose. She said, "He will come back." I looked at her. She said, "People always need air first, then they come back." I sat down. For the first time since Sunday began, I sat down in my own kitchen and I put my hands on the table next to the sealed envelope and I breathed, in and out, the way you breathe when you are trying to stay on the surface of something very deep. Eleanor reached across the table. She put her hand over mine, and then, slowly, she reached into her bag with her other hand. She took something out and placed it carefully on the table between us. Something small, a photograph, faded at the edges the way photographs from the 1970s go faded. Everything turned slightly gold with age. And when I looked at it, when I understood what I was seeing, I felt something shift inside my chest so completely that I had to grip the edge of the table to stay where I was. Because the man in that photograph was someone I recognized, someone who should not have been there, someone whose presence in Eleanor's life meant that the last 50 years had been nothing as simple as I believed it to be. And that someone, somewhere, had known my secret all along. That is the story waiting for you in the next part, and it begins with a name I had not heard spoken out loud in half a century.
Have you ever had to tell the truth to someone you love after keeping it hidden for years? Leave a comment and tell me how it felt the moment the words finally came out. I read every single one. And if Margaret's story is with you, please subscribe so you do not miss what that photograph revealed.